Joe Milton is not even in the first round of the mock draft. That does not surprise me. This, according to ESPN. Quinn Ewers, however, was a top 10 draft prospect. So I want to go through some of the stats and do a comparison on these two guys, but let me go ahead and just clarify right now. Scouts at both the college and NFL level think more of Ewers than Milton right now, significantly. Ewers got a perfect ranking in 247 Sports prospect ranking. Joe Milton was just a 3-star. Now, both have transferred. I don't think that's held against Joe Milton. I don't think that's even a factor anymore. You used to hold that against people in the draft process. But before we get into some of their college production and what they've actually done, which is pretty similar, let me get your thoughts on comparing Quinn Ewers and Joe Milton. Ewers, of course, of Texas.
Yes, so this came up because we were looking at like you talked about, a ranking of NFL draft prospects for 2024, and 3 quarterbacks were in the top 10. Now, Quinn Ewers was one of them. The other 2 were Caleb Williams, no issue there because he's a Heisman winner, and Drake Maye, who you and I both agree is the best quarterback prospect in next year's draft, bar none. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing that bothers me is Quinn Ewers in the top 10 at number 10, and Joe Milton not even in the first round, when I think back to last year, and Anthony Richardson got hyped up to a top 5 pick. And what is Anthony Richardson? What is the standard for a top 5, top 10 pick here? Because if you go by last year's standard, Quinn Ewers wouldn't be a first rounder and Joe Milton would be a top 5 pick. But all of a sudden this year, Quinn Ewers is a top 10 pick and Joe Milton isn't a first rounder. I'm like, again, it seems like it seems like they change the standard randomly every year. And I think that's what kind of bothers me about this list, because I think that if you're going based off last year, you should consider Joe Milton a far better draft prospect than Quinn Ewers, because scouts are valuing the size, the mobility, and the arm strength. Which one of those things does Joe Milton not have? I mean, so I don't get this.
No, it takes one team, and in Richardson's case, it was the Colts. So it takes one team to get you up there, and one team could fall in love with you and think that you're going to be this incredible player because of your tangibles, how far you can throw the ball. He's a much better runner than Ewers. I think we would all agree in that, even though I don't think we've seen the best of his running. And it takes one team to say, that's my guy. And I do believe that ultimately Milton and Ewers could be considered around the same place as long as Milton plays well. But I do believe they'll be considered for far different reasons. You bring up Richardson. I think that's a great reason. Ewers, however, I believe has better touch on the ball and better accuracy from what I have seen. Now, let's take a look at the stats. If you want to look at the stats, I'm going to pull what Ewers has done at Texas. He's got a 132 overall rating. I think he played 2 snaps for Ohio State, but 58% completion percentage, yards per attempt, 7.4, 15 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. So I'm going to pull what Joe Milton has just done at Tennessee. So I'm not going to get into the Michigan stuff, but he completed about 59% of his passes, 9.3 yards per attempt. Also, as far as touchdowns to interceptions, 12 touchdowns, hadn't thrown an interception at Tennessee yet, and has a 165 rating. So if you want to go by stats, it just makes your argument that much stronger. He's 30-plus points better in a quarterback rating than Quinn Ewers. So when I first saw this, when we had our 3:45 production meeting this morning, I thought, well, Ewers seems like a more solid prospect. But when you really look at the numbers, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I wonder if some people still think about that Ole Miss crazy play where he jumped out of bounds with no time left. That still sticks in my head, guys. I'll be honest with you. I've been called a Joe Milton hater. I'm not. I hope nothing but the best for the young man. But that's the kind of mistake that still stands out. And
I think he
think
panicked just being thrown into the situation the last drive, which I'm not saying that's a good sign because you don't want your quarterback. Your quarterback should always be ready, but clearly Joe Milton wasn't ready to go in the game at that moment, and I think he panicked a little bit.
I think he panicked a lot a bit. I mean, I think he clearly panicked, and that could be 1 in a million. But I don't know that it is. In a pressure situation, Tennessee is going to need him to make plays, and if he's not able to do that in clutch situations, it could be the difference in 2 wins or losses. I mean, you could be, instead of a 10-2 team, you could be an 8-4 if he makes mistakes late. Program brought to you in part by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. They have over 50 years of experience. So I'll go ahead and tell you this: City Heating and Air Conditioning, integrity matters. You might not need a whole new unit when these temperatures continue to climb up in July and August. Might just need a part or some Freon. At the end of the day, who do you think will be a better NFL prospect and quarterback? So we're having this conversation in a year, who was drafted higher. We're having this conversation in 10 years, who was a better quarterback in the NFL.
Okay, now, if you ask me, I mean, I hate to go here, but if you ask me based on my standard and not what I think NFL standards should be, because I think they're inconsistent, it has to be Quinn Ewers. I don't think Joe Milton's accuracy is something that he can never develop to be able to play at the necessary level at the NFL. I think it's one that's going to make him a very good college player. I think there will be a roster spot for him in the NFL. I don't ever see Joe Milton as an NFL starter, though. And I don't see Anthony Richardson as one either. I mean, I have never believed in arm strength as something that I think it's so overvalued with NFL draft picks at quarterback.
Well, I totally agree with that. If you get to this level, you have enough arm strength, and being able to throw the ball 65 yards, or let's say 75 yards instead of 65 yards, or 90 yards instead of 65 yards, really doesn't make a big difference. Can you make all the throws? Can you make the deep out from the far hash? Can you do that? I care more about the low profile ball. And when I look at Milton, I'm going to disagree just a little bit here, Caleb, because I thought Hendon Hooker had big time accuracy issues, and that got fixed last year. So with Joe Milton, I think it can get fixed. I used to not believe that. I used to think that accuracy was kind of innate, like being a good shooter in basketball. I think you can improve pretty drastically. So I'm
gonna have to break with you on that with Hooker, though, and I disagree with you about Hooker. Like, did it come and go in 2021? Yes, but I didn't think it was bad. It just turned out to be. It just went from okay to really, really, really good in 2022. We're asking Joe Milton to go. Joe Milton wasn't okay. His accuracy was horrendous. I mean, horrendous. And I don't know if you can go from horrendous to good.
Okay, well, let's put it this way. If Hooker was a B-, C+, he went to an A+, right? Last year, I think we can agree
I'd
with
say
that.
A-. He still missed on some throws last year. So I'd say A-.
Yeah, and I don't want to lean on completion percentage, but it was really high. So anyway, we'll say A-. So he went a full grade. Joe Milton's a D?
He was an F 2 years ago. I mean, he was an F. That it was horrendous how bad his accuracy was.
Well, that makes me wonder about your thoughts on Tennessee, because you said that you think they'll win 10 games. If he's an F or a D, they're not going to win 10 games.
I think Joe Milton can go up 2 full letter grades because he's been in the system for 3 years now. So, but that's getting him to a C. And I think a C is all you need in Josh Heupel's system to be okay. You need better than a C in the NFL.
Pretty good point. I like that. I like all of that. At the end of the day, I got to see some games. I'll tell you at the end of September who I think is the better NFL prospect. But right now, I would say Ewers. I think that could change. I'm leaving the door open slightly, taking the, I guess, easy way out. But I'm not 100% sure. Now, Travis says his accuracy wasn't the issue, or he wouldn't be playing D1. It was a timing issue. There's probably some truth to that. There's probably a lot of truth to that. It's probably a little bit of both.
Can you develop? And I guess timing you can kind of develop, right? You can kind of pick that up, which would be a good sign for him.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be okay. Let's go back to his completion percentage, and his completion percentage at Tennessee has been 59%. What was Hendon
Yes, but it
Hooker
was.
last year? Hendon
I
Hooker
think Hendon
last year
Hooker
was
was
59%, right? Or
Hendon
I'm
Hooker
sorry,
was
69%.
yeah, Hendon Hooker pushed 70. But you got to remember, it's 59%. But in games that mattered, I mean, Joe Milton was 51.6% in 2021, and he went up to 64.6 this past year. I don't consider that improvement. So much of that was mop up duty with Joe Milton. I mean, so much of it was mop up duty. So the only game we have to go on where he showed accuracy was the Orange Bowl. Now, we don't know what to make of it because the Vanderbilt game, he wasn't accurate at all. All of his issues were still on display in the Vanderbilt game, but it was raining in that game. And then the Orange Bowl
Yeah,
happened.
the weather conditions were horrible. Talking to Cooper Mays and Jacob Warren on the Vol Report, they said it was worse than it looked on television. So you can
I
go
believe
one
that.
way. You can say that the weather conditions were terrible, his accuracy was terrible, it was because of the weather. And then on the flip side, you could say Clemson didn't really want to play and they weren't motivated to play. I think it's probably somewhere in between. Where he'll be different, and what I really like about Joe Milton is the intermediate over the middle passes, the low profile passes, the little darts. I saw enough accuracy out of the Orange Bowl to believe he'll be really good on that. Now, is he going to be good on the other touch passes? That's a whole different question.